So I'm Darcy. Some of you have heard me. Some of the voices you'll hear it from the radio. If you're all working at 2 o'clock when I'm on with Deirdre Walsh, then you don't know my voice at all. So I trained as a nurse in 1983 to 1986. I went off to America. I did nursing. I learned about homeopathy. I learned about that when my daughter had 16 courses of antibiotics in 7 months, from 13 months to 19 months. Kind of set me off on that. Can you hear me okay? Set me off on a journey looking, what's going on if a child is getting that amount of antibiotics, because the microbiome, nobody was talking about that in nursing at the time. Have I come across MS in nursing? Yes, I have. Have I friends with it? There's nobody around in Ireland or in any country who doesn't know somebody or have a family member with MS. In our family, it's more of a celiac, thyroid, type 1 diabetes. Autoimmunities are on the rise, and there's more of them than ever before. So I'm going to touch on a few different things, because I've put a little piece of paper in your bag there on Terry Walls. Who has heard of Dr. Terry Walls? So if some of you are hearing about her for the first time. So whereas I'm now a nutritionist naturopath, which is really functional medicine. Functional medicine, are you functioning at your best? And if you're not, how can you function better? Because functional medicine is about, if you're missing some key nutrients, the body can't work as well as it should. So if something has changed in your gut microbiome and you're eating food, but you're not actually extracting the good B vitamins from it, you're not going to get the energy. And one of the big issues is fatigue. Fatigue that you can't even put legs under you at times. And another part of what goes on is the loss of function and the loss of ability to do certain things. And that leg not wanting to move when you want it to move, and you're nearly having somebody kick it at the back of your knee just to get you in and out of a car. So we know that the myelin, and we know it's inflammation, and we know all of those things. So I'll go into Terry Walls, and I'm going to go into a few more bits, because I also do things with Cyrix Laboratories, and they are an autoimmune laboratory in America, and they can check, have you antibodies against various different tissues? But they also check to see, have you reactions to gluten or to wheat in general, I suppose, the new wheat. But then I just looked up a couple of the patients that I have with MS that I've done some of the antibody testing to see if there's been bacteria. And I'm going to, at the end of what I'm talking about, I'll just show you a slide. Acinetobacter has been linked to MS, and it's a bacteria. And mycoplasma, black mold in houses, people exposed to mold, and mold illnesses that can cause neurological changes. So there's a lot of stuff that's gone on over the years that we can see more things. So I'm talking about eating and the Walls protocol, and I'm just going to touch on what we learned from the Cyrix Laboratories. So if Terry Walls is a doctor, and she got MS herself, and she tried all the meds and she tried all the different things. She was already eating a paleo type diet, which is the old caveman type diet that didn't have grain at that point. But she was diagnosed in the year 2000. And then she went researching, and she went to functional medicine, and she went on different, coenzyme Q10 is great for giving your mitochondria energy. She wrote a book called Minding Your Mitochondria. The mitochondria are the energy-making factories in the car. If I sat into my car this morning with a flat battery, I was not going to move anywhere. So you have these little batteries in every single cell in your body, and your brain has more of them because the brain has more energy production going on. So when you see that she then went to research, where am I going to get these nutrients? She felt better, but she wasn't stopping her deterioration. She had more energy to do stuff. She stopped the nutrients, her energy went down, she couldn't get out of the bed. She got to the point of being in a tilt wheelchair because she'd lost all this core muscle strength, and she could walk a couple of steps with walking sticks, and she was still working as a doctor, but she was seeing people from the tilt wheelchair. And she was at a point where they were going to start moving her out of her job. And then she said, in her research, she said, where do all these nutrients come from? What foods can I get these nutrients from? And when I sent Susan an email back, and I said, when I went looking for the pictures to show you some pictures of how you would eat this way, I only had to go as far as my phone. You know, this modern obsession of we all taking photographs of what we eat and posting it like you care. So my own phone had plenty of pictures of what is this type of eating, because people think I'm a bit nuts when I have a breakfast with a load of vegetables. So when I talk about having 2 eggs, spinach, red onion, avocado, tomato, maybe artichokes, and that's my breakfast, people say, well, that's my supper. And I say, if you have to get 3 cups of vegetables with every meal, or if you have to get 9 cups of these vegetables and fruits and coloured things, and you have to get them in over your day, wouldn't you want to start with your breakfast? If you're going to give 3 meals a day, shouldn't you super load and supercharge every one of them? So her big thing is getting these extra vegetables and fruits in, because that's how you get the nutrition in. This woman is now walking, talking, cycling, hiking. She is not with any disability that you can see. When I see her talking now, this amount of years on, I sometimes see her get a little bit tired when they're talking, if they're interviewing her. But this woman is living a full life. So this is why I wanted to talk on this today, because I look at nutrition. I'm a nutritionist and a herbalist and a homeopath, and I do muscle work. And there's lots of things. I'm very much about getting you back functioning, because that's really what people want. They want to function better. That's what you're sitting here for today. You want to do better than what you're doing. So she developed in 2007 the Walls Protocol, and she started following a diet that had her move into being independent. Now, a number of years ago, one of the little kids that I saw in Australia drew this picture. I asked him to draw me a picture. And I said, what are you feeling like when, this is like a little hand drawn from one of my clients. What are you feeling like when your brain is flagging, your arms are flagging, your stomach isn't great? And then once you do a correction, you see the light bulb comes on. And he drew the light bulb, because brain fog comes into it. But if your brain doesn't have energy, it's like my phone if it's not charged. Nothing works if it's not charged. So if you lose the energy, you lose the brain function. The brain fog comes in because you've lost the energy to the brain. But when your gut is good and your stomach is good, you're going to provide the nutrition, the proper nutrition. The cells can't work without the nutrition. My phone can't work unless I plugged it into the wall for enough time to give me enough charge. So you're really looking to see, am I in a healthy state or am I not in a healthy state? For Susan, I'd say at 14, from antibiotics for tonsillitis, wiped out your gut microbiome. And the minute the diagnosis landed in, as you said, anxiety, and all of that thought and all that came in, because now we know that about 90% of serotonin is produced by your gut bacteria. The bacteria make the serotonin and the GABA. If you have enough GABA, you're not anxious. If you have enough serotonin, your mood is high. And if your gut microbiome has been wiped out from antibiotics that you got for the tonsillitis, then something was wrong in the microbiome that then led on to the MS, that came alongside the anxiety and the mood changes and the second guessing herself and the giving out to herself and all the stuff, So this one just says wellness and your age as you go from 0 all the way up to 80, 90, and you see that there is a lifespan, how long are you going to live? And a health span, how long are you going to be healthy for? And when you're above in the green, you've got optimal body composition, your metabolism is great, and your peace of mind is high. And as you drop down lower and lower and lower, down here the consequences are neurodegenerative disorders. And what your aim is to keep yourself as healthy as you can, body, mind, until the absolute end and drops suddenly. And when you get a diagnosis like a lot of people in this room have got with MS, but I can guarantee you there's more people in this room that haven't got MS that are here with somebody else that have another autoimmune disorder. Some of you are here on thyroid hormones. Some of you here have different rheumatic things. There's people, because all those autoimmune conditions have gone much higher in the last number of years. So this is one of the functional medicine. And I'm just going to show you from the bottom, and I'm just going to show you here, I'm going to say that MS is here. And these are the chronic diseases that we're getting. And you'll see chronic fatigue here, which is what a lot of people were told before they got the diagnosis of MS. You thought was, it was chronic fatigue until they figure out what it is. And my friend Anne in America, she's almost 80 now. The young fella that she developed MS after is in his 40s now. And she was told for years that it was chronic fatigue. Oh, but sure, look, it's the third child. And she said, I could have had 10 for God's sake. I was a bundle of energy. I'm telling you, I don't have energy. And it took them years to diagnose her with MS. She's doing much better. I had her on a different lot of nutrients. She's in Boston. She comes home to Sligo and then I meet her. I do muscle work on her too because she's had a few falls. Everybody at some point has had a few falls. You think it's your MS then and you realise, sure, it's my hip or my shoulder or my something that is leaving you without that full mobility. Some people are left with some injuries at times. So she's even moving better. Her walker is closer because I worked on a hip. Her swing on her leg was even improved. So if you look here and I go backwards and I see mitochondrial impairment, there's your fatigue, because if your mitochondria don't work, you got to get the energy nutrients in, which is why people say B vitamins, coenzyme Q10, alpha-lipoic acid, carnitine, they're all those energy nutrients. They're often in energy formulas. But you're always trying to get the mitochondria back because that's what's leading to the body not working, doing the thing right. But inflammation is strongly linked to MS, inflammation. So you're looking to reduce the inflammation and stop eating foods that are triggering inflammation. So if you're triggered on sugar, get rid of it. If you're triggered on gluten, get rid of the gluten. If you're triggered on dairy, get rid of the dairy. If you're triggered in general, get rid of the whole lot of those. And then you say, what will I eat? Well, you'll try and eat what Terry Walls eats to get out of her tilt wheelchair and get back into life. And Jerry said this morning, do they want to get better? On the wound healing story, did you ask them if they want to get better? And I know you'll all sit here and say, of course I want to get better. Why would you even ask me such a question? Terry Walls, when she got people in for the study, when they were going, she said, commit to 100 days of eating the diet at 100%. And she said they did a washout of 2 weeks beforehand to see if the people who signed up for the study would actually be able to do the diet at 100%. And 25% of the people were unable to do the diet, so they didn't even enter the study because they couldn't do the diet. I'm going to tell you what it is. So when you look here, inflammation, loss of immune tolerance, the gut lining is where your immune system is talking, the mucus lining. But when you've lost that, stuff is getting through, the leaky gut, getting into the system, there's antibodies being created, and then you turn on your own myelin and your immune system is attacking the myelin. And then when you improve your gut function and your immune tolerance improves again, then you don't attack yourself as much and your myelin regrows. Because any of you who have had more disability and now have less disability, sure, Susan, your myelin must be fine, right? And then your leg, you say you might drop a foot, but sure, it's when you're tired. But the myelin is there to do it, because why would it only happen sometimes? The myelin isn't gone. Do you see what I'm saying? It has the ability to regrow. Neuroplasticity means the nervous system, given the right conditions, will come back and do what it should do. I'm sorry now if I'm right in your way. Am I standing in front of? So go back up from this line, and then you see chronic infections and dysbiosis. Dysbiosis means bad gut bacteria. You don't have to be passing smelly, rotten wind, or you don't have to have diarrhea that stink, but you can still have a gut dysbiosis. It might be that you just don't have enough quantity or the right, what they call, diversity of those good bacteria. So above that, immune suppression and poor detoxification. Do you see up here? Poor digestion and poor detoxification. So you'll hear me talk about, you eat the food, you have to digest the food comes in, and when the food comes into your stomach, it has to break down properly. If it doesn't, you ferment it. If you ferment it, you get wind, bloating. You might have heartburn. You might be medicated for heartburn already. You might already be on an acid blocker to stop you feeling the burn of the heartburn, but it's telling you don't digest your foods properly. And if you don't detoxify things like heavy metals, things like, all these persistent organic pollutants, all these things that are in the plastics, all these different things that we're exposed to that we know to be toxic to the system. And now go back up to the very top, the unfavorable terrain, it says. Because you are the terrain, you are the soil that everything is growing in. So the unfavorable terrain is what is in your system that allowed the development of MS. You had to have a genetic predisposition. You'll see it running in families. You had to have something that triggered it. There would have been some form of an environmental trigger. So you see the refined Western diet, refined foods, not the old-fashioned real that 100 years ago. So if you went back to eating like you had 100 years ago, I'd say pre-World War I when they started canning to bring to the front. Before that, it was all, I said to my mother one time, what do you put in an apple tart? And she said, butter. Oh no, margarine. Sure, margarine is just as good. And I could hear nearly the ad on the television for the margarine, just as good. And I asked an old man, and he said, yeah, my mother was using it. He said, I think it's around since the 20s. The Stork or one of those margarines. Margarines are bad fats. Butter is a real fat. Coconut oil is a real fat. Olive oil is it's a good oil. Avocado oils, but all these man-made fats, trans fats, not good. Not good for healing your nervous system that is made of fat. Feed yourself with good fat. It's better. You want to get the good fats in. So refined Western diet, lack of exercise. That's been talked about a few times today. Susan, exercise, your go-to, right? Again, for exercise, the person, if they can't get a leg under them, well, exercise is harder. That's when, you're here sitting in chairs and doing different things, but you want to try and get as much as you can for what you can do. Even if that meant getting a pulley over your chair and having your arms go up and down with a pulley, do something. The lack of sunshine, you need vitamin D. I got up this morning, got dressed. My car was frozen in Tipperary, I'll let you know. My backyard was freezing this morning. And I come down here to, European temperatures. But you need vitamin D, and it's better to get it through the sunshine if you can. Stress, we've talked about that. When I see Susan and it's coaching is coaching you to the future. Counselling is looking back at your past. It's always better to try and move to a good future and put your plan in place for a future. When I asked Susan that question at lunchtime and I said, what impact have you? What can you say that will inspire somebody? I found you very inspiring. But it's what message? There's so much in everybody, isn't there? And if you're coaching, but when I asked you the question and you went back to explain the history, I could see what Jerry was talking about this morning. Her whole chemistry almost went back into it while she was telling me. But then she shook it real fast and thus came back to who she is now. Because who you were and who you are and who you can be, they're all you, but that's gone. You can't change that. That's gone. It is your history. But you've got a future to go towards. And if Terry Walls can be going around riding horses and cycling bikes and doing mountain hikes because she decided she was going after a different way, I can't tell you what I've done it because I don't have MS. Our family, I'm gluten-free for celiac, prevention and stuff. Excessive hygiene. We need the dirt to build the immunity. Everyone's cleaning everything so much. So the more you clean, the less you have this ability to, if you ate off the floor, for example, or you didn't wipe down the tables with all these sprays. My kitchen, my place has just been cleaned of a lot of those toxic chemicals. They're all toxic enough chemicals. If you can smell it, it's gone up your nose and you don't really like it and it's causing you wheezing or something. It's not good for you. Any of those toxic chemicals, toxic sprays, sweeteners, all those things, they're not good for you. You've got to get those out. You've got a very delicate nervous system as it is. Mind what you have and don't be letting other things get in and poison it, is what I would say. So toxic exposures are a big one. And different medications and drugs and stuff then. So I got this put together at some point. You see healthy gut at the top. And I wanted to try and make all my slides big so whoever's at the back can read them pretty easy. But I'm just going to say if you have a healthy gut, environmental toxins come into a well-functioning, healthy liver. You'll get better metabolic function, and then clean blood is going to get through. You're not going to have the inflammation, and you're going to have this lovely, healthy brain and nervous system. But on the other side of it, you can see that if you had an inflamed, leaky gut, from what? Eating the foods wrong? Stress shuts down your stomach. You can't digest the food. You're sending undigested food into the system. That's where stress comes into it. Avoid the stress. But if you have a leaky gut and you're putting toxins to the liver, your liver isn't as good as what it should be. And now you're sending, I'm going to call it poor quality, dirty blood circulating that can activate the immune system, giving you higher inflammation, and that can trigger disease. And it can be anywhere. Where is the disease? In this room, people are talking about MS. But it can be any of the autoimmunities. If you're sitting here with any other autoimmunity other than MS, this comes into it just the same. So really you're looking at detecting, and then you're looking at removing the triggers. So you're going to ask yourself, what are your triggers? And then you're going to start repairing the barriers. The gut is a barrier. The stuff should only get in what you want to get in. So if you didn't digest your food properly, or you swallowed, say, a streptococcal sore throat, and streptococcus has gone down into your gut, and the stomach acid was low and you didn't kill it, and now you've got an infection below in your gut, for example. So you're wanting to repair the barrier. So sometimes I'll say we need to kill off some bacteria, we need to get the enzymes in, we need to get some good probiotics in. So you want this to be improved. You want to be on the left side of that sheet. You want to be in the healthy gut side. This is mentioned already today. One size does not fit all. Everybody is different. Everybody is different. So you're always looking to see what can you individually do, because everybody is different. And you'll never change your life unless you change something you do daily, because who you are today is your past, and then there's a future ahead of you. So you have the same old way or you have something new, and small changes can make a significant difference in the long term. And that small change, to me as a nutritionist, would often be food. But I'm a functional medicine thinker. If the body's not functioning well with what you're doing right now, you've got to shift it. So again, the same old way, and you want to get the light bulb back on because you want to get the strength back, you want to get the energy in. So the condition, this is the words of Terry Walls, a lot of this now, the condition you have is there already, but there's many things that you can do to slow or reverse your symptoms. The body can heal if you give it the right tools. And when you understand what the body needs to function and heal, you'll make better decisions what to do. Now, it is about this compliance or commitment. Did you hear Dr. Helena Moore mention the word commitment? Like you're committing to making a change, you're committing to doing something different. But Terry Walls would say, I want 100% compliance, because you can't judge it if you don't do it at 100%. And that 100% compliance for 100 days for you really to see whether this would work for you or not. And if in 100 days you felt better, and then you went back to eating the same old way and you got worse, then you would need a kick up in the behind for not going back and doing it. Do you see what I'm saying? This is where if it was going to work for you and make a change for you, then it's up to you to keep going with it, even if I miss my bread. My mother used to say, I'd die if I didn't have bread. I'd die without bread. But you're not going to die without bread. Nobody ever died without bread. It's all in your head. So anyway, Terry Walls would say this, the best next steps. So this is, I realise, I've heard her years ago. I don't have MS. I thought it was a good protocol. And her protocol is 3 cups of greens, 3 cups of coloured vegetables, coloured right through. So when you open a red onion, it's coloured right through. When you open a beet, the beetroot, it's really purple all the way through. And 3 cups of sulphurs. Now you'll see that they'll overlap, because when you cook cabbage, that's a high sulphur. But if you cook an onion, that's also a sulphur. But if you cook some of the greens and you can smell the sulphur off them, some of the green vegetables, they're also sulphurs. So it's 3 cups of greens, 3 cups of colours, and 3 cups of sulphurs. The sulphurs help in the detoxification. The mushrooms are high in sulphur. So I ate 5 mushrooms fried this morning with 2 eggs, red onion, what else did I have with that? Avocado. Often I'll have spinach, because if you're looking at getting 3 cups, and you have to start eating it at every meal, because how are you going to get 3 cups of greens in? Now, if you're thinking it's all uncooked, it could be a salad, but it can also be a soup, or it could be gone into a stew. But that's the volume that you're wanting to get in to get the amount of nutrition. Now, she said if it's a very small woman, you can do less than the 9 cups. 9 cups is 3 plates. She says, look at your dinner plate, and a good overfilled dinner plate with that amount of with those types of vegetables, can you see that that's doable? So your cells are needing the nutrients to function. This was the game changer for her. Sorry, see this? Not the nutrients out of a bottle. She stopped feeling as bad, but she said it didn't stop the progression of her illness. She kept deteriorating, but more slowly, and she didn't turn around and go the other direction. Do you know when you want to say, stop now and let me backtrack, right? That's what she was looking for. So Three greens, 3 colours, 3 sulphurs. So you want your cells to be getting as much as you can. So she was doing more the paleo diet, and paleo is the old caveman diet, and they weren't cultivating grains. So they didn't take a grass, turn it into, take a wheat and say, we're going to make bread, biscuits, cakes. What else have we got? Tarts. What else? All those bits that have wheat in them, right? Fish that's crumbed, fish that's battered. All those coated things, all those thickened up with flour stuffs. So there's an intense intake of vital nutrients when you eat that amount of vegetables, and the elimination of dietary elements that could contribute to poor gut health and detoxification. So what you're wanting to do is eat stuff that's going to feed your good bacteria, and you want it to help you to detoxify stuff out of the system. So it was designed to get the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, essential fats that the brain needs to rebuild its myelin, and also for the mitochondria to make energy. So if energy is the problem, you're wanting to undo that. So the 9 cups of fruit and veg, 3 plates, 1 at each of your 3 meals, dark leafy green vegetables, kale, cabbage, spinach. I have kale grown in the garden. It's in there since last summer. The snails are having a great time. I have to pick around the snails nearly to get it. I also have Swiss chard. It grows here. I like the idea of an edible garden. People are planting flowers? Just plant kale, Swiss chard with all its different colours, throw in some onions and let the scallions come up and keep eating your scallions. Parsley grows like a weed here. So there's all a load of greens. You'll always buy onions and carrots and all those when you go into any of the shops. You can buy carrots and onions organic all the time, for example. If the other ones aren't organic, do the best you can. So the vegetables with the sulphurs then, onion, garlic, leeks, cabbage and mushrooms. I think asparagus as well is another sulphur. Radishes are another sulphur. And then vegetables with the colours that are high in antioxidants. And then in addition to that, you see, you're not going hungry. I'm not saying only vegetables. You're going to eat fish and meat and the organ meat. I can remember going into the butcher, getting the kidneys, cutting the fat off the kidney, then frying kidneys. But liver is high in vitamin A. Vitamin A is good for your immune system. So I remember going off getting liver. Liver is still there. The younger people don't like liver as much. But if you don't like it, just blend it up and put it into something and blend the soup. Then you don't know you got it. It'd be like feeding children, that you just pretend it's not there. So long as you don't see it, you're not going to worry about it. Seaweed is great for iodine. Iodine is needed to build myelin. Iodine is needed to build myelin. And then you have iodine in, say, iodized salt, and then people don't have the salt. I buy sea salt, but it's our Himalayan rock salt. But adding extra, when you start eating seaweeds, put them into soups, blend it up if you don't like it. Nutritional yeast and fermented foods, like, people fermenting vegetables, or people are a lot making kefir, even if it's water kefir. There's ways of getting fermented foods in. And then you're asking, what do I have to avoid? I'm thinking of my mother now. What do you mean no bread, Anne? Anne, I couldn't not eat bread. No dairy, grains or sweeteners. All those artificial sweeteners, not any of those sweeteners, including the natural ones like honey. She just takes those out. Sugar just disturbs the system. Gluten and dairy, gone, because they are toxic to a lot of people with all kinds of different autoimmunities. And then you want to limit the potatoes and beans to about 2 servings a week if you really need them. But if you don't need them, you're better off to leave them off. But at least if you knew you could have a spud twice a week, you wouldn't cry so much in this country. So this is my tablecloth for my breakfast now. This is me just taking pictures. And you can see all the other little pictures below. I was looking to see what pictures are good. But this is me on a breakfast now when I'd have my eggs. Well, I put chili sauce. I love my Frank's hot sauce. And I have red onion, spinach, tomatoes, avocados, greens, colours and sulphurs. That would be a breakfast plate for me. But you could have made an omelette out of that. Couldn't you have cooked up, 5 or 6 mushrooms, done a fried onion, had some leftover meat from the night before, some chicken, and just whip it all up and into an omelette with 2 eggs, and now you've made an omelette. It doesn't have to be what I'm showing you there. Meat, veg and no spud. If I go into a restaurant, I often say, can I have meat, veg and no spud? Then I get extra veg. I make sure it's gluten-free, because sometimes they've snuck in a sauce into the cabbage that you weren't expecting. But that's a dinner somewhere. That's, bacon and carrots and cabbage and turnip. just vegetables and steak. And then, again, a piece of steak with different kinds of veg. I have goat's cheese on that. I have Swiss chard I see on the top right. But what you're really trying to do is get a whole load of veg. And you're looking to get... So you could see if I did 3 of those, I focus on eating that way. I don't look at a sandwich menu. I never look at a sandwich menu out. And I will look at making soups or stews. Or I could make up a big chicken stock. Or I'd have boiled up the leftover chicken and I'd put a whole load of vegetables into it and I blend it. And then if you have a big thick soup that has all that blended in, you're drinking that soup. It doesn't matter how you're having it. You don't have to eat it raw like you see a lot on my plates. I eat cooked and I eat raw. But if your stomach isn't great and you want warm, put loads of garlic on, that's sulfur. Put leeks. When I'm not doing rice, I will often chop up cabbage really fine and I steam it. I take that out and then I put in leeks and I mix my cabbage and leeks together, and it's like it's like a bed of spaghetti underneath whatever I'm putting on it. So it's cabbage and leek, it's full of sulfur, it's also got the greens, and it's the bed for your spaghetti bolognese, but it's not spaghetti. So would you say that you'd have to change the way you think about food to do it? 25% of the people with the opportunity to go into the study with Terry Walls, who had reversed her MS, failed to do the diet, failed to manage to get through the diet. It was too difficult for them. But if you could see that you could do it and make a stab at it, it would be worth doing. And then you change it up, like I have here, that's a hollandaise sauce on that one, but I'll make avocado and I'll put chili on it and I'll have it like a Mexican dish. There's other times I'll put a basil pesto on it and I have it more like an Italian dish, but I'm still eating the same kind of foods all the time. Now, will I have a bowl of porridge at times? Yes. So it's not like I'm all grain free all the time. But this is the way Terry Walls would be doing it. Now, let me show this picture. This is from Cyrex Laboratories. And Cyrex Laboratories have antibody testing where they're testing different parts of your body to see if you have antibodies against those parts of the body. So you can see joint autoimmunity over here, and that would be somebody who may be presenting with rheumatoid arthritis. But we can see antibodies against the heart, and we can see antibodies above against the brain. So celiac disease is a known gluten problem where the gut villi, the absorption part, is damaged by gluten. So the recommendation is get off gluten forevermore. And a person who is newly diagnosed celiac is told, go off gluten. There isn't a question. The doctor will support you 100% going off gluten because they know you have to get off gluten. But there are antibodies to other tissues, including the brain and the myelin. And that's where you go looking to see, is gluten a problem for me? So with the neurological autoimmune reactivity, that picture is the wording. They can detect immune reactivity. And if you can see that you are reacting, you can then do something about it. I'm going on from that. So people who have neurological conditions, some people have what's called cerebellar ataxia. When you said, I need to stand near something, so gluten can damage the cerebellum and have you being a bit unsteady on your walk. That's now diagnosed, through a neurologist in England, gluten affecting the brain. So they now know gluten is a big trigger for the brain. Terry Walls had trigeminal neuralgia. How many people in the room would also have had trigeminal neuralgia? It's that pain. A couple, yeah. No, there's a few. Trigeminal neuralgia, it's like a virus that will get in and damage the nerve. And it's this electrical shock pain through your face. She said if she gets the tiniest bit of sugar, she gets the pain in her face. If she gets gluten accidentally, it gives her the pain in her face and she goes backwards 3 weeks. So you can't say she's cured of MS. If she doesn't eat the way she's eating, she will revert back. It's a bit like taking frozen ice cream out. If you leave it out long enough, it's going to melt and it's no longer frozen ice cream. So you can be in a good, healthy body that you've removed the triggers from, you got your health back, and then you go back and do what you did before, and all the symptoms come back. You'd say, well, I can control that then, can't I? So there is a lot of gluten reactivity, dairy sensitivity, and that is causing a leaky gut barrier, and there's also a leaky blood-brain barrier. They can now do antibody testing to detect if you have a leaky blood-brain barrier. But what's going to do it is what you're eating. It's what you're taking into your system. So the antigens associated with that test, see over here, myelin basic protein. I wanted to leave all my wording really big so you could see it, but then that looked like a fancy way of putting it, and now you can't read it. But what it does say is myelin basic protein is present in demyelinating diseases. That's what they said to you. It's MS. You're demyelinating. What does that mean? You're losing the myelin, the electrical cable telling your leg to lift, your foot to lift. You're losing the cabling. So even though the brain might want to lift the leg's not lifting because you've demyelinated. But if the demyelination is in your control, if you can do something about it, if something more can be done, would you do it? And these aziogangliocytes, when they're positive, you'll see MS over here. Cerebellum, you'll see agglutinin ataxia. You'll see this tubulin, demyelinating diseases. So when these antibodies show up, your body has antibodies against different parts. And the myelin basic protein is the protective sheet. You know the myelin is that. And the myelin basic protein is an important part of myelination. And when you see an antibody where your own immune system is attacking that, and if you can go off gluten as people have done, then will you get MS? I went off gluten full-time about 10 years ago. Dr. Tom O'Brien is a gluten. He really researches gluten big time. I was at a cardiovascular event yesterday in Dublin, and he spoke in from America yesterday. And 10 years ago, he said, when he had these bloods done 20 years ago at that time, because they're new enough, 30 years ago is new in medicine, or 25 years ago, he had myelin basic protein and 3 other immune reactions against his brain. And he said, I went off gluten then 100%, and he said, when it was rechecked, these antibodies were gone. He said, would I have MS now? I don't know. He said, all I know is that those antibodies are no longer in my blood. He had myelin basic antibodies, and they're gone. 10 years ago, he met my friend, and he got married a couple of years ago, and he now has a 3-year-old. He got married about 4 years ago. He now has a 3-year-old. The man is 72 years of age. He looks like he's 50. He doesn't have MS, and he's trotting around a new dad at 72 with no antibodies against his myelin, and probably having the best sex life in his life. And he's 72, looking 50, let me tell you. So the myelin basic protein, if that's a target and it's in your blood, would it be worth trying to get it out? So when I would have tested different people, sometimes I'll see that in there. And then I say to them, you know, it would be worth getting rid of the gluten. And the dairy is another one that would be worth getting rid of. Because if the myelin basic protein is there, it's linked to the MS, autism. PANDAS means pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with streptococcal bacteria. And then they had to come in with the ANDAS because they found it in adults as well as children. OCD, lupus, toxins, they find it high in other things other than MS. But when you go off the gluten, for a lot of people, it disappears. Gluten is your toxin. And then there's cross reactions with it. These are bacteria. So when I looked up earlier on a few people that I checked, Acinetobacter is linked to MS. It's one of the bacteria. And the Mycobacterium, they're like a fungal type of, so they can be linked. And when you have the myelin cross-reacting to any of these, see the herpes 6, do you know Epstein-Barr virus they talk about? That is, did you hear it mentioned earlier? Dr. Helena Moore mentioned it. It's one of the herpes viruses. They just named them all differently depending on who found them. And we're up to herpes 9 or whatever. They just keep giving them new names. But they are viruses, and we do have viruses. It's how we handle viruses, and it's what does the virus do to us? How receptive are we to getting viruses, you know, and not fighting them at the time, I suppose, really. And you see this bisphenol A, BPA, you know, all those plastic bottles that we're now giving out that we're having to charge and bring back and do all the rest of it. You're better off not buying those plastic bottles, because those plastic bottles, a lot of them have BPA. You'll now buy your own hard bottle and you'll see BPA free. There's a reason. You don't want BPA going into your system. So what are the clinical significance of having these myelin antibodies? They're detected in various different neuroimmune disorders, such as MS. So you say, do we know why it's happening? We don't know. We don't know why it's happening. But follow the research. There's a lot of stuff triggering MS. So you tap into as many as you can, especially if you already know you get a pain in your belly and bloated if you're taking gluten. So in possible case of multiple sclerosis, this is somebody who's there thinking, is this what you have? The measurements of antibodies against the myelin basic protein may predict an early conversion to clinically definite. Now you're fully diagnosed. So if you saw you had antibodies and you get rid of the antibodies, you're probably after avoiding it. But then you'd have to keep eating that way, So I know a few people that saw that on their test and then went gluten-free and went looking to see, was it one of the Lyme diseases? Was it Candida? Was it Klebsiella? Was it, because sometimes there's other bacteria. Acinetobacter is one of them. So this human herpes simplex, this one, increased risk of multiple autoimmunities. Neuroautoimmunity, it doesn't matter which one it is. It could be Parkinson's, could be MS, could be Alzheimer's. It's whatever, it's where you're attacking in the brain. And the Acinetobacter, an increased risk of multiple sclerosis. So when I did the antibody test on that lady over in Boston from Sligo, she had Acinetobacter and Klebsiella. They were her two that she had. And if you go back here, have I Klebsiella? No. There's different ones. So cross-reactivity then means that if you have these bugs in your system, these infections, so in this case, due to cross-reactivity to streptococcal, well, streptococcal is streptococcal sore throat, my dear. Susan, I'm talking to, who's got the tonsillitis, who had tonsillitis. Do you know what I'm saying? If you go back and you think, what did I have? Does it jump out of the sky at you? Do you know? Like when she said 14 at lunch, I said, 14 years of age. Who the hell gets it at 14 years of age, for God's sake? When did you ever hear of it? For example. And then you think all the sore throats, and you think of the antibiotics disturbing the microbiome. Do you see what I'm saying? And then you see her so good. So you say, she's after working on herself. She's after working on the gut microbiome. She's eating in a different way. She's recovering herself. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you can recover yourself. Would you look at you walking around now and looking lovely today and say, and bouncing and happy, recovering? Do you see what I'm saying? Not like, which way do you go? Do you go this way? Or which way would you go? Do you see what I'm saying? When you have new research telling you there's different ways. So when you see cross-reactivity of streptococcal protein from streptococcal sore throat more commonly, many times the people said, I'll swab you to see if it's strep. The myelin protein antibody. So anyway, what you get is this cross-reactivity that then triggers that immune system. So you'll never change unless you change something you do every day. So you're looking at the same old way or you're looking at something new and you're really trying to change. So that's just me. I have a strong interest in gut and neurological health. Before I left Australia, I had a course running called The Brain Gut. Back then, Jerry was talking about the mind, you were talking about the mind. What's telling the brain what to do? The mind. So there's the mind gut, the brain gut. What's your perception of the world? It's all to do with those brain chemicals that we discover are made by the bowel bacteria. So I have a background as a registered nurse because that's what I went into. Healing was always my thing. I didn't want to be working in an office. That was my thing. I was always about somebody's health for some reason. I never wanted accountancy or any of those other things. So health. And I have a very questioning brain. I love my brain. I don't risk my brain with sweeteners. I don't risk my brain with, a load of toxic stuff. I try and keep my brain as clean as it could be because I know. But it wasn't until I knew the gluten. Did I eat plenty of wheat in my day? Of course. I had dairy yesterday. Not everybody with the Walls protocol has to go off eggs. Terry Walls gets instant recurrence of pain in her trigeminal neuralgia when she eats eggs. So eggs bring her pain back. Gluten accidentally gone into her food, which would only be a small bit because she'd obviously see if it was bread, sets her back 3 weeks, she said, and she has to take steroids to get herself back from the inflammation that she gets instantly from. So I'm going to ask you to do this, right? I'm going to just say to you, go and watch and observe what you're eating Observe how you feel. Maybe take a challenge of doing the 9 cups, 3 plates. Have your eggs at one meal, have some chicken at another meal, have some steak at another meal. Change it around, throw a bit of chili sauce on it, just do it gluten-free. And then see do you feel better. And she says, take the challenge for a month. I'm going to run a Zoom call on Saturday at 12 o'clock. Susan, you can send out a Zoom link, can't you? Yes. And if there's anybody who's after hearing something that I've said and said, yep, I want to know more about that. There's a few other bits I do. Like I have people who rub frankincense and different essential oils, and that can help. People who take different types of nutrients. Sometimes I'll do something different to get rid of infections when they're there. There's other things that I do where I have knowledge on. Sometimes you can say it here in public, and sometimes you can't because you get shot. But I am. That number is not working right. It'll take a text. My 3, I upgraded my 3, and I haven't been able to ring a message bank or make a phone call off it for the last 8 weeks while they're trying to fix it. But anyway, I am on Instagram. I'm AnnDarcyNutrition on gmail.com. AnnDarcyNutrition on gmail.com, A-N-N-E, Darcy. So if anyone is interested in doing a Zoom where I'll just go over that, and if it's kind of like what Susan said, this is for some people and not for others. She talking about the mind and the focus and the pushing forward is for some, not for others. But if what you're after hearing today through all of the talks, I think we're all after saying basically the same thing. We're all after talking similar. And it's about making choices for the future. And not putting any pressure on anybody. That's another thing. I always come across like I'm putting pressure on you. I'm sorry. Okay, that's enough. Oh yeah, I can do a Q&A. Sorry. Of course I can do a Q&A. It's only 5:03. So unless you've somewhere to be now, and any of us, you can ask questions to any of us, I suppose, at this point too. Questions?
I have a question. You mentioned about seaweed necessary to build myelin.
Yeah.
If you have a thyroid condition and the iodine, should you not have seaweed?
That's a good question, isn't it? Because if you had a Hashimoto's thyroid that was in an overactivity and inflamed, then iodine wouldn't necessarily be right for that person. That's if it's a person with MS and Hashimoto's thyroid. But if your thyroid is underfunctioning because you don't have enough iodine, then you need iodine. Yeah. So you can do antibodies to test your thyroid. The question is thyroid. Can you take iodine if you have a thyroid problem? The only one that you don't take iodine with is if it's Hashimoto's thyroid, and you'd have to have had the antibodies done to see if the antibodies were really high. In our family, celiac appears and thyroid is out of balance. Sorry, I'm hitting that now, aren't I, the speaker? The microphone. Sorry, the antibodies, if the antibodies are high, you have Hashimoto's. If they've never checked your antibodies, you don't know whether you have antibodies or not, so you don't know what you have. People who got diagnosed 20 years ago, there was nobody checking antibodies. And nowadays, if they see that you need thyroid hormone, they'll often put you on thyroid hormone just to correct it. And they say, well, sure, the thyroid is gone and we really don't need to know why. Whereas I think it's important to know if you have antibodies, because then you know that it's an autoimmune thyroid. But if iodine is needed to build iodine and we don't get enough iodine, so if you're not eating enough seafood or you're not getting seaweed would give you great iodine. Vitamin K that's in those green vegetables, vitamin K is needed to build myelin. The gut bacteria take out of the green vegetables the vitamin K, change it, and turn it into vitamin K2. You'll often see people now buying vitamin D3 and K2. The K2 builds the myelin. But when Terry Wall says, go and do it in food, what she says, if you don't pay for it now as food, you're going to pay for it later in lost work time, lost going to appointments and whatever. So, I actually find it really easy. I just go and buy food, put it in my fridge or my cupboard, and then I eat it. I look and I see. I don't ever plan a meal. I just look and see. I have pumpkin. I cut it small. I can have a meal on the table in 10 minutes. I'll cut pumpkin small and put it in an air fryer, and now I have crispy pumpkin with the pumpkin seeds. And then I'll have a steak on, and I'll have chopped an onion and a mushroom with the steak, and I want something else with it. And I might have gone and got Swiss chard or kale or, some other green, And then as soon as the onions and the mushrooms are cooked, I'll throw some greens in that'll just shrink in on top of it. And the air fryer is coming 5 minutes later with my air fried pumpkin with the skin and the seeds, that's the way I do it, onto a plate, and now I have a full plate of food. And it took me 6 minutes to cook the steak. So the whole meal can be on the table while the steak is cooking. So it doesn't have to take you an awful long period of time. You think you're having time to do it. It's when you go out and buy the food and you have all these colours. She says aim for about 100 different types. But we're in Ireland, we have certain ones. We have carrot, parsnip, turnip. We have pumpkin, we have sweet potatoes. We have a certain amount of different types of greens, and we have all these onions, leeks. We have all the foods. They're not even expensive. Do you know what I'm saying? So the iodine, in answer to that big diversion, sorry. If you had a Hashimoto's thyroid, be careful on it is all. But if your Hashimoto's thyroid is already, if you've reduced your inflammation, your thyroid has probably well recovered. And I know that my sister and my niece both had thyroid issues, and they went off gluten and their thyroids recovered. I have a brother who's celiac. His thyroid was disrupted at the time that they discovered his celiac. He's off gluten 100%. His thyroid never recovered. So it depends on the damage done. If you've blown up that gland, it's gone for some people. But for some people, they can recover their thyroid. Yeah, go on.
Is it okay to have like a smoothie with all these
Yes,
vegetables?
100%.
Break up all
No, it'd be great, because if you do a smoothie and you like having a smoothie and you take those green vegetables, say spinach, and you put it to your blueberries and all these other colours, then that is absolutely perfect, and you're drinking that meal and you can take it with you for the day. You could actually make a big huge stew and have all of those vegetables in it and eat it like a stew, but then you can take that and you can blend the whole thing up, and now you're drinking it as a soup. But you just know yourself that you're having what is the volume of those 9 cups, 3 cups of sulfurs, 3 cups of colours, 3 cups of greens. And you think it's hard, and it's not. It is so easy. Like, who would be interested in challenging themselves to that for 100 days? Yeah. It's not hard. It's good food. I love food. I love tasty food. I love putting garlic and lemon into food. I cook chicken and I just put a bit of Himalayan rock salt, and then I squeeze in lemon and I put in garlic, and I get the waft of garlic and lemon up my nose. I'll take courgettes and I'll cook them like that too, lemon and garlic. Like, you can make really nice, tasty food. Just to decide, you know where you decide? You decide in the supermarket. You decide when you're buying the stuff. And then when you come home, if you have it all there, you have your cauliflower and your broccoli. People buy that anyway. Cauliflower, broccoli. We grew up with these. These are our Irish foods. There's nothing strange in it. What you don't have is the spud. You can have it twice a week. And what you don't have is the bread. They're for the biscuit. They're for anything made from wheat. I know. You toss it up, right? You'd say, which one? What way do I want to be? What way do I want to be? Yeah.
What's your opinion on the other diets that are there for MS sufferers? Things like overcoming MS diet.
Are they working for you? Yeah, no, this is the thing. So there are different people will be able to do different diets better. And some of them have lower fat and some of them have more fat. And you've got to find the one that works for you. The reason I like Terry Walls is I eat that way, and I like the energy I get from it. I feel well. I don't get sick. If I do, I got COVID and I got out of it again real fast. It's not that, it's like which one would work. Now, all of ye have different things going on. What she also said was when family members do it with the person who has MS, it's much easier to stick to it. And people do much better when everybody starts eating the same way. So whatever diet works for you. But some people go on a ketogenic diet. They've taken out all the sugar completely. Some people say, paleo is better. She was doing paleo, but she wasn't going the other direction. So she was doing the one with no grain, but she wasn't as deteriorating as much, but she wasn't improving. I'm still talking to you. Like, look up Dr. Terry Walls. Her name is in your bag. There's a sheet. I put it on the top. And Dr. Terry Walls. Just look her up and listen to a few of her, even some of the older ones when she was diagnosed first and when she started with this first. look up the Institute of Functional Medicine and just do it and listen to her. And then watch her. And then say to yourself, would I give it a go? There are lots of diets out there.
I just want to say, would you agree with eating the gluten-free breads and all that for the 7 supermarkets?
You can, but they turn into sugar very quick. So, and I would even say to you, they turn into sugar more than a gluten bread, because gluten is protein. And to make it look and feel and taste and make you happy, they've had potato starch, corn starch, tapioca starch, and starch is sugar, 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 sugar. So when you go the gluten-free breads, just to make yourself feel I'm satisfied now, I'd nearly prefer to see you cooking a spud. That's a real food. And I would say if you really can't get off the bread, cook enough spuds in their skins and then do a fried spud. Didn't we all grow up with fried spud with an egg? And liver, fried spud and an egg and liver. Look at that, that's a full meal. And then if you want to get in your 9 cups, go and have some of the other vegetables with it. You will not be hungry. You will actually be trying to put in more food. And if you're a smaller woman, she said, like, she's 9 cups because she's 6 foot, I'm 5'7.5". If you had a little 5 foot nothing, would you be saying that 5 foot nothing would get away with maybe only 7 cups? But I often would eat, I could have 12 to 14 different types of vegetables in a day. Now, some days I have the same thing over. Sometimes I might have spinach, onion, tomatoes, avocados. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'll have something else. But my root vegetables, I'll have cauliflower, broccoli. I am thinking this way. I don't have MS. I'm thinking this way for health. I go into a restaurant and I think this way. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I know without having MS, we don't have it in the family. We've nobody in our line. We're more the celiac, thyroid, type 1 diabetes. Do you know, I see a few of the rheumatoid stuff coming up. We don't have MS. So, but I know people with it. But if there's people here with it, which there is, you didn't come in out of the sun for nothing. Do you know, you're looking then to say, what could I do? Could I eat that way? You'll be eating loads. Put some olive oil on top of your salads. Put lemon juice or apple cider vinegar or something on your salads. I don't buy all those bottles of stuff that, all those salad dressings. They're not even in my fridge. There was a time they used to be in my fridge for other people. They're not in my fridge anymore. I'd have balsamic vinegar in my cupboard and olive oil. Sorry, there was another question there.
Can you say a few words about fruit, please?
About? Fruit. So if you were trying to do this diet and you wanted to be in ketosis, for example, you wouldn't eat fruit because fruit wouldn't allow you to be in ketosis. This diet doesn't require you to be in ketosis. This diet is more about getting all the colours and the antioxidants and the protection for your cells to get all the detoxification. So blueberries, all the colours of the rainbow kind of blueberries, your citrus, all of them. You can have fruit on this. So when you're looking at doing a plate, you can have sulfurs, which is all those onions and things. You'll have your multiple colours. That's where your fruit's going to come in. And then you're going to have your green vegetables. So you can have fruit. You can eat grapefruit. You can eat, like, whatever it is. Like, I'll often make salads and I'll break in a grapefruit. Or I'll put in a lot of blueberries or the raspberries. It depends what you have. So if you're a real sweet tooth person, just have the berries, even if they're frozen berries, to go into the smoothies, for example. Put frozen blueberries into the smoothies. You're fine. They're good. You're getting that into the colours. And you're still counted into your 9 cups. We're at the end of the day now. Anyone else? Yeah.
Would you recommend everybody to try the gluten-free diet even for a month to see how they felt?
I would.
Yeah?
Yeah. The thing about gluten is it takes about a good 6 months for it to leave your system completely. And if you have a really bad reaction that your autoimmunity re-triggers, that if you're somebody, they say 1/8 the size of your little fingernail of gluten is enough to reactivate the immune system. So when Terry Walls describes getting gluten by mistake and having to take steroids for the next few weeks and being in pain for 6 weeks and having her energy drop and her foot drop and all the different things that comes with it, that tiny bit of gluten, because she didn't eat bread. Do you know what I'm saying? It was like that somebody said that sauce was gluten-free or the cornstarch was gluten-free and it really wasn't, I would recommend it. I know I'm gluten-free. An awful lot of people within the functional medicine arena kind of thing are gone gluten-free. Monsanto changed the grass, the wheat. They crossed it with the grass. They did that about, 20, 30 years ago. We were all on Monsanto seed. It's all Roundup ready. It's all been sprayed. It's a known neurotoxin. You'd be saying, why would I have it? You're not going to get everything gluten-free. You're not going to get everything organic even. Like I buy my oats organic and I'll eat them at times. But for the most part, I'm on my 3 plates of stuff.
Would you see a difference after a month?
You would. You would. But are you just going to go gluten-free, or are you going to put in the whole thing? And then I would say, what I would say to you is, go and listen to her, because I know I found you really inspiring. I know you're inspiring. Did you find her inspiring? She's bouncing around when you know already that she wasn't well, that she didn't have that level of mobility or whatever it was. So when you look at that, you say, if you look at Terry Walls and she's doing what she's doing, you just kind of got to listen to her. All I'm doing is giving you an introduction to her for the people who haven't heard about her. And then it's up to you to go and look and see, would you actually go and go with it, Yeah. Sorry, when I see people leave it, I know we're gone after the time that you want to finish. Is there any other questions on that?
I'll let you know how I get on.
Well, I'm going to do a Zoom on 12 o'clock on Saturday, and Susan will send you out the message if you want even. I don't mind. You can send out the Zoom. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks to everyone today. Thanks, John, for recording. That will be online in a couple of weeks when he gets a chance to edit it. Thanks for coming today. I hope you've all found it beneficial. Delighted with the turnout. We will do this event again, but we will, as we said back in 2024, it took us 4 years to do it a second time, but we're hoping to do it every second year. So if there is something that you think would be a beneficial talk, you can contact us through the Instagram page. Thank you. Drive carefully. Enjoy the rest of the sunshine. And